Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today we're going to talk about, and I'm going to do a Nintendo Switch review. Now, this could have been, a video which was all scripted, but I don't want to do that. I want to just give my honest thoughts and opinions on a bunch of things about the Nintendo Switch. Why am I doing it now? Because clearly this thing is coming to the end of its life. And it probably in the next sort of 5 to 6 months we're going to hear something about whatever the successor is to the Switch. Now, a simple answer is that I love this console. I think this console is fantastic, but there's a lot more that I have to say and want to say about the system. So the way we're going to do it is I'm going to break it down into essentially two sections. The first section is going to be about the hardware itself, the operating system, the eShop, the controllers, all that sort of stuff. Talking about most of those individual elements, and then we'll talk about the games and the things like that afterwards. Now, I think Nintendo were kind of brave when they made the Switch to basically take the concept of the Wii U and be like, hey, this tablet idea, we like this portable screen thing, and we're going to try that again, considering how badly the Wii U did. Now, for context, I really like the Wii U for what it was. It deserves all the flack it gets. They really messed up there, but there were still some good games there, right? But then the Switch comes along. And I think the Switch has done a lot for me as someone who was very much like... Firstly, I wasn't a big fan of Zelda. That all changed since the Switch. And this has given me, like, each sort of generation of consoles gives me a different sort of time in my life that I remember for different things. So, when people say to me, what's your favourite console? It's really hard to say, because I have fond memories growing up with the SNES. I have fond memories growing up with the GameCube. And then, obviously, after the GameCube, the Wii. And the Wii U, and then the Switch. So, but the Switch itself, the actual form factor this take, where they basically merged their handheld division with their console division and made this little portable fella. I've got it here with me at the moment. And this, I should also clarify, this is based on the original Switch. So the regular Switch, this isn't the OLED, this isn't the Lite. I've used them, but I've never had them, I've never owned them. I've only ever had, this is a day one Switch, by the way. So this is the original with the crappier battery life. But this is an original Switch with the original Joy-Con that no longer work. But ultimately, the form factor being this, hey, you can dock this, play it like a console, or you can just pick it out the dock, take it with you, stick it in standby mode, and then wherever you are, you can just crack this thing out and play it. Essentially, it's a tablet with controllers attached to it, and they just nailed the marketing for this thing off the bat. It made so much sense with the games they were showing, the places you could use it, and you might be like, oh, I'd never use this on a plane, but, they've almost sold, well, they've sold like, what, 145 million? 140 something million consoles. So it's obviously done incredibly well for Nintendo. And this concept of a hybrid console that is, can be docked or can be taken on the way, away with you, suddenly has boomed in this area, because now you have portable PCs, you have the Steam Deck, the Iron Neo, there's plenty others as well, but they've all kind of, after the Switch got its success by being a hybrid system, there's been a big boom in these kind of hybrid systems. You've even seen sort of Sony have their take on it, and Microsoft apparently has a take on it. So that concept of a console handheld thing is crazy, and that plays into a lot of, I think for the longest time, for the first few years of this system, when games came out and we got to play them in handheld, it was like, wow, I'm playing like console quality game in handheld, which is crazy. And what's funny about it is the Switch itself is kind of undercooked. Even when it came out in 2017, it wasn't the most high-powered system. It's back to using cartridges. It's this dingy little tablet with these controllers attached to it, but they did the right thing. They marketed the fact that you've always got two controllers with you. You can stop playing your game that you're playing on your TV and take it with you. You can stick it play it in the back of the car. You can do all these different things, play it on a plane, things like that. And that really helped. I think the marketing really nailed what this system was going to be capable of and what it could do. So let's talk about this system I've got on my hands currently. What's good about it? I've never had an issue with the screen. I think the screen's always been really good. I think some people might have had issues here and there, but the screen itself, I've always found to be really good quality. I've had the same screen protector on this screen for the entire time I've had it, which is good. I will say I don't play my Switch in handheld that much. I'm definitely more of a console man. I like the fact that I have that option, and I have played it in bed and tried it out in multiple ways. But I tend to use it a lot. But the screen itself I've always found to be absolutely adequate. No issues there. I'm not like a huge screen tech person. Like I don't have like in my house. I don't have like a 4K TV. I don't have like 120 hertz monitors, stuff like that. Like I'm quite content with having my 1080p like monitors, a nice size, and this. Even though people will probably tell you that you should get 4K and 120 hertz on that, but in terms of this quality of the screen, I had zero issues with it. I've always found it to be perfectly fine. The speakers on the front of this have always been decent as well. I've always found they're actually surprisingly loud, which makes for a awesome experience when you're playing places you can hear what you're doing. It's very, very good. No issues with the rest of the actual tablet part. No issues with the volume, the power button, all that stuff. There's obviously the compartment for your compartment for your games is on top. Never really had any issues there, apart from the occasional game going, ooh, I can't read that. And then under the back plate, or sorry, say under the kickstand. Now, the kickstand on this original model is pretty crap. It's very light. I've never had too many issues. I've had it fall over once. But it was a cool concept, just clearly you would have thought they would have had two there. But under there is your SD card slot, which is a really good way of hiding that. And then on the bottom, I think there's those back parts of fans at the back there, and as well as the one on the top. So that tablet itself, I've never had any issues with. I've always really liked the form factor. It's incredibly thin as well. And then your USB-C at the bottom for charging it or docking it into different things. Then there's the Joy-Con, and I think, the Joy-Con have been spoken about in lengths. Joy-Con drift, stick drift in general, like, it's very clear that the Joy-Con are probably one of the worst things about the system, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that they're not. The Joy-Con are kind of crap. The concept of having two controllers with you at all times so you can ham one off is a really, really good idea. My Joy-Con, the two sets that I've had, the first set got really bad drift, and if you remember the original Joy-Con, I think it was the left one, didn't have very good range, so you could stick it behind your back and you'd just be like, nothing would happen. So they ended up doing more with the aerials in these, so that they would work at a better range. My current Joy-Con that I've got, the SL and SR buttons, the ones when you pull them off the rails, you got those buttons in there, they don't currently work. So they've obviously broken. So that's good. To be honest, my hands are absolutely fine with the Joy-Con, but I do prefer a regular size controller. I think that these are adequate, but nothing more. The sticks are not that bad, the buttons are not that bad. The D-pad is absolute crap because it is a split D-pad. If anyone tells you that a split D-pad is good, they're lying. If your D-pad is not connected and you've instead got 4 buttons, it's only going to be good for games that do not require inputs like that. Like, you wouldn't want to play a fighting game with this, let's just say that. But I can't stand, that's why I don't like the PlayStation controller. It's got a split D-pad. Terrible design, don't do that. But all the other buttons and things like that, absolutely fine. I would say the triggers and the top buttons are kind of like clicky, they're not analog. But in terms of what the Joy-Con are, they are very okay in terms of form factor. But since the Switch has obviously come out and there's so many other alternatives to the Joy-Con are the last thing you want to use, really. Even the better Joy-Con, like the ones that have been released by other companies, the big chunky ones like Hori, I think. Is it Hori that do them? Like the Split Pad Pro, and then you got all these casings like Cracked and all these other companies that you just slide the screen in, so it's like in a big comfy slot. They're just so much better than the Joy-Cons. Like, you can't really go wrong with any of that stuff, as long as the sticks work and the buttons are good. But Joy-Cons are there because you can stick it in a carry case and whatnot, and they're all good. Let's talk about the Pro Controller on the other hand. The Pro Controller for this system is fantastic. It's not perfect, but the HD rumble in it is awesome. It's very comfortable to use. The sticks are a nice size. The buttons are a nice size. It's a nice weight. The battery life is insane on this thing. It's about 20 to 30 hours, I believe. So that's good. Only downside is it doesn't have analog triggers, but that's Nintendo's decision not to do that for a lot of their hardware. But I would say the Pro Controller is like a must for this. If not a Pro Controller, there are a lot of good third-party controllers for the system. PowerA is a good one. 8-Bit Do, obviously, if you've seen this channel, I've done a lot about their stuff. There's a lot of good controllers for this system. There's also a lot of random stuff as well, so be careful. But there is definitely some good official stuff that you can get. made by third parties. The biggest difference is if you don't buy a Pro controller, most of the third-party controllers won't have HD rumble. A lot of them will have Hall effect joysticks now, which is good. But there are a few, just a few things about them that won't be quite the same as a normal Pro controller for this console. But in terms of, it's one of the top tier controllers. It's definitely up there. Very comfortable, very, very good piece of hardware. Really, really like it. The dock, which comes with this thing, the dock's an interesting choice. The original dock is quite hefty. I think even the rebranded one that was done for the OLED and stuff is still quite chunky. Except that one has a not USB, sorry. It has a hard cabled internet cable in it and Ethernet cable into it, which is really, really cool. And the dock's just a nice way of putting your Switch down and somewhere it will stand on it. It is weird that it's just literally on that slotted USB-C. But as long as it's not being moved or moved around, there's no issues with it. I've never had any issues with the dock, except the price. In the UK, I'm pretty sure a second dock on its own is about £80, which is outrageous for a piece of plastic. Hence why you saw a lot of other docks come out. The only downside to a lot of those was that the voltage was wrong, so it would kill off and brick a lot of Switch consoles. I've always wanted another dock, but I've refused to pay it. To me, like, the dock itself should be no more than about £40 at most. So yeah, I definitely think Nintendo were overcharging for a piece of plastic there a lot. It's very shitty of them, to be honest, but the dock itself is a decent enough kit, you know, does everything it needs to do. Fine. Great. So, like, in terms of, like, hardware, like, in actual form factor and stuff, I really appreciate what the Switch is going for and what it's done. Obviously, you know, as time's gone on, it's gotten better. The screen size being slightly bigger and that bezel being smaller on the OLED is really cool. And I like the fact that they've obviously improved things with time, like battery life, stuff like that. But this original Switch unit I've got here has lasted me. I've never had any issues with it. I think I've had it crash once, like a hard crash where I had to properly reset it. But all in all, no issues with the dock, no issues with the actual console itself, only really with the Joy-Con. And all of that stuff's been documented, so, you know, points for a lot of it, not so much with the Joy-Con. That is definitely a bit of a failure on Nintendo's part, so we'll see what happens with the next system. I assume they'll let you use the Joy-Con, but I hope they have new ones that are actually good and not crap, and they don't keep breaking. So, let's talk about the operating system for this thing, because one thing that this console is very, very impressive about is how fast it turns on, how fast you're at the menu, and how fast you can get back into a game that you had in suspended mode. That side of things is really impressive. I think the way that I think there's like always a little bit of RAM given, or a lot of RAM given, to start spinning up the console super quickly, getting you in there super fast, and then back into whatever game you were playing, which is really, really nice. The actual main screen, like like where you see all your games, moving around that home screen, very, very slick, feels very tight, very clicky, very enjoyable to use. A nice, satisfying user experience. All the options along the bottom, like your Nintendo. Like the Nintendo app thing that's on there, there's the news app, there's like settings, all this stuff, very snappy, except for maybe the Nintendo app, and we'll get to the eShop in a minute. But like in terms of the actual homepage on it, okay, they never brought any more themes out, which seems like a bit of a miss, but I guess it's because they wanted to stay at a certain level of snappiness, and maybe adding more themes other than black and white would have changed that. And, you know, having the options that have been added in over time, like Bluetooth has been really nice. There's a bunch of controller options. There's a ton of like level stuff, like system level stuff that's been done to like improve. You always get the stupid updates to say stability and things like that, but there has been a lot of changes made to the system as time's gone on. There's also, like I said, there's the Nintendo Switch app thing that's on there. The red button at the bottom, and that takes you towards like your missions, which is a cool addition that allows you to get little pictures and gifs and things for your profile, so you can change like what picture you have for your profile. You've got, you know, information there, like what challenges are going on. It's a little bit stuttery because it opens up like a sort of a browser, but that's not the worst of Vendor. So before we get onto the eShop, I do want to praise the fact that it is a fast, snappy operating system at system level. Getting around easy. The way that you can create folders and things now easy, like getting to the settings easy, like all of it brilliant. It was well thought out. I think the downside is that when you have limited RAM, there's only so much you can do, and more themes and things like that would have been beneficial, but you know, it is what it is. However, the eShop. Now, I remember going on the eShop originally when it first launched, and it was, wasn't that much stuff on there, and it was great. It was fairly quick. But what the system is doing is opening up a web browser. The problem is, at this point, it struggles to load anything because there are so many games on this thing that it just struggles to load them up. It also doesn't help that the eShop could have had some upgrades to it that would have helped for like searching for certain types of games. Like reviews would have massively helped. All this sort of stuff. But the big issue is that there's no curation on the eShop at all. It is full of adult games, junk games, asset flip games. Like obviously all the stuff that people want to play, like a new Mario or Zelda or Doom or whatever these games are. You can find them, you can search them, you can find them. There's a lot of good stuff that comes to the Switch, but there is no curation. They literally open the floodgates and everything, and in there, including the kitchen sink. If you want the biggest offender, AAA Clock, that company that keeps re-releasing those games, as far as I'm concerned, all their stuff should be wiped and they should be banned from the platform because they just keep re-releasing the same games with different editions. It's all rubbish, and it just goes to show that Nintendo really, they're probably making too much money to care. But I hope that going forward in the future that they do a better job, because the eShop in its current state is kind of one of the weakest points of this system. I will say I've never had that many issues downloading games from the system. I've actually found the speeds to be somewhat okay, or I'll just do it before bed. But yeah, I'm not impatient. Never had any issues with that. My Switch sits very close to my internet hub in the house, so that probably helps. But yeah, in terms of the system and its operating system, as well as the eShop and things, there's some really good points. There's some high highs there, like snappiness when you're not in the eShop, and then there's the eShop itself, which is just a horrible mess, and it needs a lot of love. I would like Nintendo, just employ me. I will curate your store and get rid of all your crap. But yeah, there is a downside to the eShop, that it's not user friendly, and even if you turn mature parental guidance on, you'll still see a lot of the mature content, which is not good. So that is a point against the system. Honestly, that is the main things to talk about when you're talking about the hardware, when you're talking about system level things. I'm not going to go over every single little bit that's been added or changed, but those are the big things that I think people, want to hear about, have their own opinions on. The stuff like the Joy-Con being a bit crap, as well as the eShop being a bit crap, I think are widely regarded, and everyone's on the same page about that. But a console is only as good as its games. And there is an argument to be made here that the Switch has some of the best games in their franchises. If you take Mario, for example, Odyssey, Wonder, even Bowser's Fury, there's a lot of incredibly good Mario games here. One thing that you cannot knock Nintendo for is that pretty much most of the games they released, I won't say all the games, probably about 90% of the games they've released on the system are well-made games. You don't hear people talking about Nintendo's games being buggy for the most part. You will get it from time to time with stuff like Zelda, and probably Xenoblade, but Mario games are always so tightly and well-made. You've got games that have done incredibly well on the system. Metroid Prime Remastered, Metroid Dread, fantastic on this system. We obviously had both Zelda's Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, done fantastic. Some reason because this system has done so well, it's elevated so many games. Animal Crossing, Mario Kart, Smash Brothers. I mean, Smash Ultimate is the best-selling fighting game of all time. Animal Crossing has done incredibly well. Mario Kart just continues to sell. It's broken loads of records. Pokemon does really well on the system, even though, because Pokemon Company makes those games, or Game Freak, and their quality there definitely lacks. That's something that needs addressing. But if you look at these million-seller games, it's kind of nuts just how many games are hitting those high numbers. We're talking 10 million plus for a lot of this stuff. We've had new IPs. We had ARMS, game that's near and dear to my heart. Obviously, Splatoon 2 and 3 have done very well. There is so many good games here, and that's why I will never fault someone saying, hey, you know what, the Switch might be the best console ever in terms of game library, because there are some incredible additions to established franchises, to new franchises, things like that. Obviously for me, seeing things like F-Zero 99, might not be the F-Zero game that I wanted initially, But that game is done really well. That game's got a ton of content. It's played by a lot of people. You know, we've got Advance Wars. It wouldn't be a Killjoy video if I didn't bring up Advance Wars at least once. The fact that we got a remake of Advance Wars, the fact that we've got Famicom Detective Club, you know, there's a new one just about to come out, or it is out. You know, there's so many old franchises that got life on this system again. You know, not every single thing. We haven't got a traditional F-Zero, we don't have a traditional Kid Icarus, you know, we don't have an Excite Bike. There's still games that could be out there, Wave Race. But there's a lot of stuff here that's done really well. You know, we've had good Mario parties. We've got DLC for Mario Kart 8, which was insane, really. There's so much stuff that's happened here that when you actually break down just Nintendo's own release games, it's kind of nuts. There's so much good stuff. There's plenty of Zeldas, Marios, all these different games and franchises, and it's like, it's hard to disagree with anyone that says, hey, you know what, these are some of the best. I mean, look, Zelda made me a fan of the 3D games. I'm not necessarily talking about the older 3D games, like I've played Wind Waker and things, but I don't have much interest in playing like Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess. But Breath of the Wild was just such a different game. It made me a fan of the series, and I bought it day one and I absolutely loved it, and I loved Tears of the Kingdom as well. And then we got, like I said, Mario Odyssey, Mario Wonder, Bowser's Fury. It's just crazy. Like Metroid Dread, phenomenal game. Just so much good content. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, like incredible game, one of the best Kirby games. Like Nintendo have basically this entire system could do no wrong. We got a new Mario Strikers. All right, it wasn't as good maybe as the other ones, but we got a new Mario Strikers. We got one of the best Luigi's Mansion, if not the best one. There's so many games here that you can point to and be like, yeah, these are some of the best in the series, and they should be. As time goes on, you know, Nintendo should be better at doing their craft. I mean, we've got remakes of Mario RPG. Didn't really like it originally, loved it this time around. We got Paper Mario, loved that game. Got a chance to replay that, was awesome. You know, all right, there's a lot of remakes and remasters, and there's a lot of ports from other systems, but the fact of the matter that it worked on the Switch, not all these games were perfect, and you know, when you've got aging hardware, there is that limitation. You know, frame rate, resolution, all that stuff. But I was wowed when I played Doom Eternal on the Switch. We got Yooka-Laylee, we got The Witcher, we got Nier Automata. There's so many games that came to Switch that ultimately, okay, they might be the inferior version, but the amount of people that were playing games on the Switch because they could take it with them. You know, hand in hand, those two things, and you were able to take those games and go. Honestly, the software library for this is probably one of the best, if not, you know, this is up there with probably like PlayStation 4. This is up there with, you know, Xbox 360, PS2. This library for this system is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, you're going to have one or two dickheads out there like, oh, it's underpowered, it's underbaked. Yes, we know that. But that still doesn't mean that the games that came to this system aren't phenomenal. Like, and even if the versions might be some of the more compromised versions, some of them are all just impressive. You know, the fact they got games running, they got games feeling right, got games, you know, ultimately being able to play them on the system. You know, like Skyrim got re-released again. You know, we got classic games, we got newer games. You know, there's obviously stuff that I would love to have seen come to the Switch, which will probably come to its successor. Like, for example, Street Fighter 6. You know, that's a game I would love to play on Switch, but I can't imagine it running very well. Mortal Kombat 1 is a good example of maybe not to port a game. But the fact that there were so many games that would just blow up. A lot of indie games as well. You think about the amount of indie games that came out. Like Hollow Knight's done really well. Shovel Knight's done really well, like on Switch. There's a ton of games that just blew up on Switch. You know, and it's honestly just astounding how much, like, despite the eShop being full of absolute duds, there is so many gems on the Switch. Like, just me opening up my system and scrolling, it became like second Steam. I had so many games, I was buying stuff throughout the sales and things and just adding them to my library. There's still so much stuff I haven't played. I'm trying to build up this big library of Switch games, like physical and digital, because it's the one time I was like, this is the time for me to do it. You know, this is when I've wanted to like actually have a big library of games for this, because I love this system. You know, like, that doesn't excuse some of the ports to this system. You know, like Outer Worlds is a good example of a really, really shoddy port, or like just they shouldn't have tried it. Mortal Kombat 1. There are games that just struggled, but there's games like, for every game like that, there's Doom, there's The Witcher, there's Ukulele, there's all these other games, and it's kind of like, well, and you look at Nintendo's, most of their games run decently. So it all boils down to your own personal preference. Like, if you've got a powerful console or you've got a powerful PC and you don't play things on the go, this is going to be the most unappealing thing to you, right? Unless you want to play, you know, Smash or something, Mario Kart, right? Because that's the only place you're going to be able to do it. For me, like, I play a lot of stuff on PC and I play a lot of stuff on Switch, and I don't have a PS5 and I don't have an Xbox Series. But I love what Nintendo puts out. You know, I'm a big fan of their games. They make some dumb decisions. They made some dumb decisions with the Switch. Look at the Joy-Con. Look at the eShop. Right? It's not a perfect system. It's nowhere near a perfect system. But it never needed to be. It needed to be a system that just had a constant output of games, and we got that. This console made me love Xenoblade. It made me love Zelda. I've got the best Smash game ever released on it. You know, there's just so much stuff. Like my playthroughs of Doom and Doom Eternal were on the Switch. There is so much in the way of a library here that is just incredible. It makes this system honestly just a phenomenal system. Right? It's not perfect, but it's still done what it needed to do. It elevated Nintendo and it made them put out some of their best games they've ever released on this thing. You know, I am excited for what's to come. You know, obviously there's a lot of people like myself that are like, hey, keep what you've done here, just triple the power. Like, that's really what we need. Just triple the power up and we're golden, you know? But Nintendo will probably do something crazy. They always kind of do. But what's really good is that this system has clear flaws that can be improved on the next system. If the next Nintendo Switch system, or whatever it ends up being called, but let's just call it Nintendo Switch 2, if it's got backwards compatibility, if it lets you bring over your digital library, if the eShop is much cleaner and runs like much more smoother, and it's easier to find games and block out stuff you don't want to see, if the new versions of the Joy-Con or whatever they end up using don't have drift, they have Hall effect, or they're just better, more comfortable, have analog stuff, there's all these things here. If Nintendo do that, then all they have to worry about is making sure the games that they then release on that system are quality, as they have been with this system. Improve on things that need improving on, like I said, Joy-Con, eShop, they're the big offenders. You make that a lot better, that goes a long way. You know, obviously people still want voice chat, like that's something that's always going to come up. I get that, something, you know, I don't care about that, but that's definitely something people want. There are going to be other areas of this system that I'm probably not even thinking about that could be used, you know, those upgrades and things like that, like themes would be good. But ultimately, the game libraries, or game library for this system, is just insane. And I'm not talking about the shovelware, I'm talking about the good releases from the indie developers, the third-party developers, and the Nintendo themselves. And hopefully going forward, we're going to see more stuff. It's awesome that we got stuff from Microsoft, you know, on here. Like, I really find that the Switch is one of my favorite places to play. I have bought games twice. Mark of the Ninja Remastered is just a game that comes to mind. But I have bought games twice because I wanted them on PC and on my Switch. You know, I've got Rocket League on both, you know, and even if it is a inferior version, I just love having a lot of these games on my system. I've double dipped so many times. I own a digital and a physical copy of Metroid Prime Remastered. Same with Advance Wars. Same with Smash. There are games where I have bought doubles on it. Like, honestly, like for me personally, I don't know if it's my favourite system because I love the Wii, I love the GameCube, I love the SNES for different reasons, all different reasons. But I can easily say, look, the Switch has been one of Nintendo's biggest successes of all time. That's no doubt. It has had some incredible games put on it. All right, a lot of stuff ported as well. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, incredible game, but it was ported from the Wii U. But the new Marios, the new Zeldas, ARMS, the new Splatoons, the new Pokemon games to a degree, not all of them. You know, there's a lot of stuff. The new sports games. There's just so much stuff that Nintendo have put out. The Xenoblade games, you know, F-Zero 99, Advance Wars remake. Bloody Mario and Donkey Kong remake, a game that I love. You know, so much stuff, whether it be new and old, whatever it is. This system has got one of the best libraries I've ever seen on a system. It just has. And then you know, you're not even talking about third party. So we've got so many Tetris related things, so many Pac-Man related things, so many games from Sega, from SNK, from Capcom. Tons of classic games that people were like, I want to play that on the go. You know, just go and type in SNK into the eShop. Look how much of the classic arcade archive games are on there. You know, look at the fact that pretty much every single Resident Evil game is on the Switch. You know, there's always the issue with the play online games like Resident Evil, like 7 and 8, and then the Kingdom Hearts things. But other than that, apart from a few imperfections, this is just insane. The library of games, like if you don't own a Switch, and you're soon to be owning a Switch, the world is your oyster. You have so much to look forward to and play on all levels in terms of big AAAs, small indies. There's so much good stuff to, like, you know, for people to get into, essentially. Like, you know, I recently bought and started replaying Rayman Legends. I've got, you know, what else? We've got the Jackbox games on Switch, Street Fighter, we've got Streets of Rage 4, there's the WarioWare games. What else we've got? Astro, Aqua Kitty, and Aqua Kitty, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, the Power Rangers game, Valkyria Chronicles, Mario Maker. Plenty of Sonic games. There's just so much stuff. There's so many RPGs as well, like the Persona games, Lego Star Wars, Shin Megami Tensei, the Bit Trip Runner games, Shantae games. Like, honestly, this can go on and on. The Ori and the Blind Forest, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Like, I can go on forever for just how much good quality games there are on this system, and decent versions of a lot of them as well. You know, ultimately, it comes down to the fact that Nintendo had a very good release schedule. They're not putting billions into their games, so they don't take the turnaround time is only 2 to 3 years. You know, a steady amount of games like that. If you've watched any of the Nintendo Directs, they're fairly well paced. They have indie showcases, they have partner Directs, they have their own stuff that they want to show off. We've still got games coming like Metroid Prime 4, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, stuff that I'm still just as excited about. Like, Nintendo are just killing it with this system. I imagine they're a little bit nervous about the next system. I imagine the fan base is a bit nervous about it because they usually do well and then not so well. But if Nintendo know how to, if they keep putting out the quality games they're doing, people will buy their system. It's as simple as that. Final thoughts then. The Nintendo Switch. For what it is, it's a very, very good system. It has flaws and it is probably underpowered for, you know, considering even the time it came out. But the brand new games we got on the system, the brand new remakes, the incredible indies, and even the third-party support has been so good, and we've got really good quality ports. Not everything, but for the most part, from those third parties, and Nintendo's first-party stuff has been just their output has just been insane because they've merged both the handheld and the console divisions. It's hard not for me to not smile when I think about this thing and be like, you know what, this has brought me a ton of fun. I've played hours of Smash, hours of Mario Kart, a ton of like single player stuff there as well. And, like, I am just incredibly glad that the Switch is what it is. It's brought me a ton of joy, and a ton of just excellent games. And honestly, Nintendo know what they need to improve on. I've already told you what I think are the weakest points about it. It's not a perfect system, but damn does it have one of the best video game libraries I've ever had the pleasure of perusing through and playing, in terms of old and new and everything in between. So that's my review of the system. I'm not going to give it a score because this is a piece of hardware and all that. Like, I think you can tell from how I'm speaking about it just how much of an impact it's had on my life and as a system, and just how much joy I've got out of it. So for me, it's going to be one of my favorites, if not my favorite, for a while. We'll see what the next system is like, and if that ends up knocking it off its spot. But it's just an awesome piece of hardware and tech. So it's fantastic. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching this video. If you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content, then hit subscribe. Obviously, as well, on a video like this, tell me what you like about the system and what you don't like about the system in the comments below, because there might be things that I've missed that I haven't mentioned here, or games that have been like absolute wonders to you, or even just the ability to play these games on the go, you know. So feel free to stick that down below. And until next video, I will see you then.